So hello everyone, welcome to this another video of ScaleUp India. In this video we are going to discuss that how we can establish a connection with the database. So this video is basically the part 2 of our JDBC series, and before this we have already released the part 1 of our JDBC where we discuss the whole scenario with you. And I hope that you must have watched that particular video. If not, then you can check the link in the I button on top, or you can check the same in the description and in the comment section also. Now, before we understand that how to create a connection with the database, let's try to understand what is JDBC first of all. So, JDBC stands for Java Database Connectivity. So in this word itself, database, we have the D as well as B itself. So JDBC. Now this is an API which is provided by Java to access the database. And what it helps, so this basically helps us in order to interact with the relational database. Now you may raise a point that what about the non-relational database? So those databases we are not going to discuss here. For that we will be having some separate video. But JDBC is basically dedicated to the relational database. Now how does it so? By providing us some classes and interfaces. So that is the purpose of JDBC. Now the point comes is that these classes and these interfaces are enough in order to interact with the database? The answer is no. For that, JDBC follows a driver based approach. So these drivers are provided by the different kinds of database itself. So let's say there is a MySQL database, they will give a separate driver. There is a PostgreSQL database that will give a separate kind of driver, and we will be using those drivers. Now those drivers are going to implement our interfaces and will provide a connection between our application and the database. So these drivers are basically going to act as a bridge between our application and database and will take care of all the kinds of communications and the protocol translation, because otherwise you see these are completely two different worlds. A Java is a separate thing, a separate technology, database is a separate technology. Now with the help of JDBC, developers can do too many things, and one of them is to create a connection with the database. So that is one of the basic stuff which we can do. Then beside this, we know that whenever we are working with the database, we need to work with the transactions also. I mean, it should not happen that we were able to deduct the amount from one table and we were not able to add the amount to the separate table. So that should not happen. So database will automatically take care of your transactions. Most of the cases by default it will provide you auto commit. Then with the help of JDBC, we can perform all the CRUD operations like insert, update, query, that is reading from the database, as well as to delete the data. Now how this will be happening? By sending the SQL statements and the procedures to the database. So these things we will be sending to the database using JDBC. And now when we have sent this, so obviously we will be getting some kind of result. So JDBC will also help you in order to process that particular result. So JDBC can provide you all these things, and for that you don't need to do too much amount of coding. The coding is going to be very less. Most of the things we just need to reuse again and again. So we will see all these things with the help of our code also. But before this, let's just try to see that how JDBC is going to work, just with the help of this particular diagram. So here, as you can see, we have a Java application, and then we have two different databases also. One is a MySQL database, one is a PostgreSQL database. You can consider any other SQL database also. That's not an issue here. Now the question is how this Java application will interact with this database. Can it interact directly? The answer is no. We just now learned. So for this, we will be taking help of the JDBC, which is a Java Database Connectivity API. Now although here I have created the diagram of this JDBC separately, but in reality it is a part of your Java application only. Now it is not going to stand outside of your Java code. It will be the part of your Java code. Now the question is that, as we just learned, JDBC will provide us classes and interfaces. But will it know everything about all the databases in this world? The answer is no. Otherwise, the Java or the JDK itself will become so big or so huge in nature because it needs to store the details of all the database which exist in this world, and that is too much. So for this, they take help of the vendors itself. So JDBC will ask MySQL to provide a MySQL driver. Now this MySQL driver will contain the more details and the implementations of those interfaces, and it will help you to connect with the MySQL database. Similarly, for the PostgreSQL, JDBC will again ask and will get a PostgreSQL driver, which will help in order to interact with that particular database. So one thing is for sure that we need to create our Java application as it is, whatever we were doing. The only thing which we need to add is the JDBC part. Basically in our repository layer, if you remember from our previous scenario which we explained in our part 1, that we will be having different layers: controller layer, service layer, repository layer. So in the repository layer we will be implementing the JDBC, and then we will be taking help of the appropriate driver in order to connect with the database. Now let's just try to have a overall idea of the various database connections and the different databases. So here we have a particular table with us. Now this table is not complete in itself. Here I have just listed only some of the popular databases. Maybe your favorite database is not even appearing here, so please don't mind for that. You can just tell me in the comment section which one is your favorite database, or which is the database with which you are going to interact most of the times. So here I have just taken some of them, and we can see that for the MySQL, the driver name will look something like this, because I just mentioned that we need a driver. So obviously for that driver there will be some kind of driver name. Yeah. So that driver name will look something like this. And whenever we need to interact with the database, we obviously need to provide the location of that database. Now that location will be in the format of a URL. So for MySQL, this URL will look like this: JDBC :MySQL /localhost, basically the host address where your database is going to appear. So currently I will be having the database in my machine itself, hence I will be calling it as a localhost. Then the port number for MySQL, by default it is 3306 until and unless you are going to change this. And then we have the database name, or you can call it as a schema name. So this database name will keep on changing, and rest of the connection URL will remain same. Also this host name is also going to differ accordingly. Similarly for PostgreSQL also we have something, Oracle also we have something, SQL Server, SQLite and H2. Now the question which generally people ask is that do we need to remember all these things? The answer is no as well as yes. Now why I'm saying no is because let's say that your boss asks you to work with the MySQL database. So what you will do? You will just Google, or you will ask the ChatGPT or Google Bard that what is the driver name for MySQL, and you will get some kind of answer like this. So you will just use it, that's it. Hence you don't need to remember it as it is. But the point is that you should have a basic kind of idea that when they say here database name, so what comes up there. I mean, it should not happen that okay, the Google and or the ChatGPT, they just provided you something like this and you are using it as it is, and then you are saying it is not working, because you need to replace this database name with the actual database name which you will be using. So now I hope that there is too much of theory for the day, and now let's move towards the coding part and try to create a connection between our Java application and the MySQL database. So here we are, and we are going to directly start with the demo 1. And again, if you are thinking why we are not going to discuss demo 0 today, because this we have already covered in our previous video in detail and the whole scenario has been covered there. So I request you to watch that, because maybe you don't need that demo 0 for this video, but at least for the next video you need both demo 0 and demo 1. Now let's move towards demo 1. So again, this demo 1 is using JDK 17. Here I'm having an src folder containing com.ScaleUp India package, and there I'm just having a very simple demo class. So if you remember that in the very first releasing video where I announced that okay, we will be interacting with the database. So there I said that okay, we are not going to do something that we will just create a very simple class. I will make a connection with the database and I will say that okay, this is done. So today also we are not going to do that, but this is just a part of our whole series. So today we are just going to create a connection. We are not going to perform any kind of create, update, read or delete kind of query, because for that again we will be taking help of our whole scenario, and those things we will be doing in our next video. In this video it is just a pure connection with your database. Yeah. Now for this, the minimum thing which I need from your side is that you should be having a MySQL connection, a MySQL community server and MySQL Workbench in your machine. Otherwise you need to just google it and you need to think that okay, from where you can get a MySQL online for free. But the easiest way is you download the same in your machine, because it is going to be helpful for our upcoming series also, where we are going to work with the Hibernate and then Spring and Spring Boot and all those things. So it's always a good practice to have that. So even if you haven't downloaded, so after watching this video you can download the same. Now let's see what they are saying here. So first of all, they are saying that if you want to work with the database, you need to load the MySQL driver. So that is for sure, we know that okay, we need to do that particular thing. So let's load it. Now how to load this, that's an interesting part. So we will be saying here class dot for name. So this is the way to load your driver here. So we'll just say class dot for name. And now we need the name of our MySQL driver. Now again, let's say that I don't remember what is the name of my MySQL driver. So let's take help of Google. We will be doing here everything in the real time. So we'll just go to the Google and here I will just say MySQL driver class name. So this is what I will be saying. And it says com.mysql.jdbc.driver. So that's why I said you that you don't need to remember. So we'll just go here and just pass it on here as a string. So this is going to take your output as a string here. Now it says that okay, it is going to throw some kind of checked exception and hence we need to handle the same. So for this, what we will quickly do is we will just surround it with a try and catch block. So we'll just say this try and catch here. So you should be start using your shortcuts. If you are not using Eclipse, then you may be using some other IDE that will be having some different kinds of shortcuts. So let's remove this as of now, and this is the way your code is now going to look like. Here we have a MySQL driver loaded for us. So this is the way we are going to load the driver. Now this is something different which you have just seen earlier, that how you are going to use something. So here we will be taking help of this particular thing only in order to load the driver. And this is what you just needs to do here. Now the next part is that we need to create a connection with the MySQL database. So for this, again we need to take help of connection. So we'll just say here connection. Now this connection is coming from the JDBC part. Again, if you will ask me that okay, how we will directly came to this conclusion that we need to go for a connection, because again the point is now onwards whenever you need to use something, so there will be some of the things which you need to remember, that okay, you need to create a connection, so you need a connection. The point is not that how it directly came, otherwise things will become too big. Yeah. And here we need to appreciate abstraction. So abstraction says that okay, you don't need to worry that much here. So we'll just say connection here and let's say null as of now. So we'll just try to import it. So we'll just say Control Shift O and it will get imported from java.sql. So this is your connection, and if I say open declaration, so you can see this is an interface which is an auto closable interface, and this is what we will be getting from the JDBC, and this is since Java 1.1 onwards. So there we are. Now this is the connection. Now the point is currently the connection is null. We need to initialize it. Now in order to initialize this connection, we need to take help of driver manager. Again, this is something which you need to remember as of now. So we'll just say driver manager, but again the point is the more you are going to code, the more these things are going to become obvious for you. Like, again, just try to imagine the day when you learned Java. You must be thinking that, okay, why do we need public, static, void, main, and all these things in just order to write the hello world? But now, having this public, static, void, main is not a big deal for you. Now if someone will ask you that, okay, why do you need, you will say, okay, this is going to be a basic thing. Without this, how can I write the Java code? Same thing is going to happen with these things also: the connection, the driver manager, class.forName, all these things. So this is driver manager, and here we'll say get connection. Now here, when you go for the get connection, there are various parts. So one is you just give the URL here, and then you give the username password later on. But we'll directly go for this particular method where we can provide all the three things: the URL, username, and password in the same statement or the same method itself. Now what should be our URL here? So for the URL, let's give the URL of our database. Now again, we need to remember that from our PPT, we saw that there was a particular URL. So same we will be providing here. So again, this is going to be a string, and we will say JDBC colon MySQL. Again, if you wish, you can Google it out first, or you can just remember and just type it here. So it is JDBC colon MySQL colon /. Then it was the host name. So currently it is my local host. Then it was the port number. So that was 3306. And after the port number, again it was a slash. And now comes the database name. So you remember that I wrote something like this: database underscore name. So this is the one. But this database underscore name is just a placeholder. I mean, this here you need to give the actual database name. So since we are going to work with Pakistan here, and this is JDBC, so let's call it as Pakistan underscore JDBC. It's your wish, whatever you wish to call it. So I'm just calling it Pakistan underscore JDBC. If you wish, you can just call it JDBC demo. Yeah, don't just go for the word JDBC. Otherwise, you only will get confused later on why I called it as JDBC. Yeah, this is something like someone asks you to give the name of a class and you say class. So that's a little weird. So we should have some better names. Now the next one is that we need to give the username. So this is the username of our database. Now I hope that if you have installed MySQL Community Server and the Workbench in your machine, so at the time of installing, you must have provided some username and password for your database for the whole MySQL. So same username and password you need to provide here. So for me, this is very simple: root. So I generally go for this root and root only because this is too easy for me to remember. I mean, there are too many passwords which we need to remember. So at least let's make this one as simple. So I'm calling it as root and root here, something like this. So this is the way how it is going to work. Again, now it is showing me some kind of exception. So let me just say here again, surround with a try and catch block first. So this is how it looks like. So first we have a try block. Then within that we are writing this. For this we have this particular catch block. Then again we are writing all this, and then again we have this particular catch block. So what I'm thinking is that instead of having a nested try and catch block, let's remove it from here, and let's remove this catch block also from here, and let's just try to write it after this catch block itself. So Control X, Control V, and there we go for our this particular one, catch block. Yeah, something like this. And also, if you wish, I mean, if for both of them the body is going to remain same, so you can make help of multi-catch block. I hope you have watched a video of exception handling. There we show all these things in detail, that how you can do something like this. So this is the one here, guys. And again, let me see Control Shift O, Control Shift F, so that it gets formatted. So this is how it now looks like. You have a particular connection and you are handling your exceptions here, and all things are good. But here it gives me something like this. What it says, it is not used as of now. Not an issue, we will be using it later on. Yeah, so this connection is basically a kind of resource for you, and since it is a resource for us, so we should close all these resources. Yeah, So what we will be doing is we will just write here a finally block and we'll try to close this particular connection here. Yeah, I mean that's a good practice for us. So we'll just say here connection dot close, something like this. Connection dot close here we will be writing out here. But the point is that we created the connection within the try block. So the scope of variable is till that particular point only, but we need to close it here. So what we can do is we can just take it outside our try block and we can keep it here. Initially we can call it as null, something at this particular point, and here we can just say connection, something like this, Control Shift O, Control Shift F. So this is how it looks like. Now it says that unhandled exception. For this also again some exception can come, that's not an issue. So again surround it with a try and catch block, so something like this. So here we are again surrounding it with a try and catch block. Now the point is that what if that this particular statement didn't got executed, and in this statement itself some exception got occurred. So if exception will get occurred in this statement itself, which means that connection is not initialized. So if connection is not initialized, so your close will be called upon the null, and it can give you again some kind of null pointer exception. So I hope that is clear, that what if exception occurs in this statement itself, so connection will get never initialized, it is null. So although that exception will be taken here, then it will go to finally, and here it will try to close the connection which is already null. So here we need to have a null check. So we will say if objects dot non-null. So we will just say that if this object is not null, then only we need to close this. Otherwise there is no need to close this particular connection. I mean, if it didn't got started, then why do we need to close it? So that's how it is going to look like. So this part is also done for us. So I hope that we have done all these things step by step, and now these things are clear to you. Now after this, so let's say that now when I will execute the code, I will be able to create a connection, but if only exception will occur, then only I will get something. If exception won't occur, then what? So for us, as of now, let's try to have some kind of success message. So we'll just say here a sysout, and within this sysout we will say here connection, something like this, just a simple, pretty simple statement, connection established. So that means if this line gets printed, our connection is successful. Otherwise if this line doesn't comes and some exception occurs, then it's an issue. And if the exception also won't come and this line also won't come, then it's a very big trouble for us. Yeah? So these are the issues. And if you wish how the driver manager looks like, you can always go here and you can say open declaration. So it's basically a class and it looks something like this. So all these, and it register your drivers and all this. So those things you can check out from there. But for this you don't need to remember more than this. So this part is more than sufficient if you just remember these many steps here. And basically steps are these two. All these things etc, you know that we didn't created them, they were asked, I mean Java asked us to create them, so we just keep on going ahead after this. Yeah. So these are the things how it is going to look like. So now let's try to execute the code and see whether this is going to work or not. So that is simple. So we'll just select this and we'll say run demo. So when we execute the demo, it says that okay, this particular class is not found, that is called MySQL JDBC driver is not found. Because the point is that where is this driver basically? I mean this is actually a class in itself, so where is this particular driver? So I told you that this driver is not there in your JDK by default, or in this particular JRE library this driver isn't there by default. Otherwise it will become too big. It needs to take care of the MySQL driver, PostgreSQL driver, H2 driver, Oracle driver, so many. So it will become big. So here comes the time that we need to add the driver explicitly outside from the Java. So let's do the hunt for it. So we'll again go to Chrome and we will say MySQL driver jar, let's say. So this is going to be basically a jar file only. So here again, so many things are there, but the point is, out of them, which is going to be a trusted website? Like whenever you are going to download something and keep it as a part of your code, you need to trust that. Yeah. And many times if you are working in an organization, at that point of time you are working for some client, so you can't just simply download anything and use it from the Google. Yeah. So let's go to someone trustworthy, and I will take help of MVN repository here. So I'll just say MVN, and this MVN repository come. So I'll go here. Now this is particularly a repository where you will get almost all kinds of jar files whichever you need in your complete Java life, because it contains around 34.3 millions of jars, which is too big. I mean, we are not going to actually use that many. Yeah. So only few will be using, but we should know how to use it. And this is going to be very helpful for a Java developer. So always just bookmark this particular URL. I have also done that. So I'll just search MySQL here like this. I'll say search. Now on searching for MySQL, so many around 1213 results came, but I won't go down that much. Yeah, I mean, you don't need to go for all other vendors. You can just trust for this very first two. So for the first two, you see, for both of them are providing you the MySQL connector Java. Both of them are JDBC type 4 driver. So that means both are same, both are going to help you to interact with the MySQL. Then you will say that we will check their latest release. That is also same. You will say we will check their usages. So this is usages more. So let's go there. So we'll click here. Now on clicking this, it says that this artifact was moved to this, which means although here also they are providing all these versions and everything, but it's better to go for this one, that is the latest one. So here let's go for this particular one, latest, the first link which we were looking. So that was actually the same. So there it was moved, and these are all the versions. So how do you remember these versions, or what is the purpose of these versions? Now imagine that you are making usage of something like WhatsApp or Facebook or something like this in your mobile phone. Now, do you think whatever the WhatsApp which you downloaded for the very first time, you are today also you are using the same WhatsApp? The answer is no. There are too many updates since the point you downloaded or installed it for the first time, and now whatever you are using. So the updates keeps on coming. Yeah. So how do we make usage of those updates? From the Play Store or the App Store. So sometimes we say auto update, sometimes we try to update on our own. So same is the things here. So here also they keep on updating the things. Sometimes some vulnerability appears, sometimes they try to add some new kind of feature to benefit you. Same like in Java. Java 8, Java 9, Java 10, we are in Java 17. So same here. So always whenever you are using something, try to go for the latest stable thing. Ensure that there is nothing like snapshot after this, and if not, then just go for it. So this is the latest one, 8.0.33. So we'll just click there, and on clicking it will take me to this particular thing. Now here what I currently need is, I will go for the jar file. Now if you are thinking, I mean if you are watching this particular series and then you are thinking why we are not making usage of the Maven, because I just wanted to show the whole JDBC first in detail, and then after this JDBC series we will be having a video with the Maven also. Yeah. So whatever we are teaching here, same thing you can do with the help of Maven. That is just an extra part of this. So maybe by the time you are watching this video, that Maven video is also released. That depends. But as of now, we are not using Maven. We'll directly go for the jar file. So we'll go there. And in case if that video is released, so I hope that there also I will be making usage of this MySQL only. So again, you can just browse our whole playlist, and for this you obviously need to subscribe the channel. So this jar file got downloaded here. Now by default this jar file will exist in my downloads folder, but as a good practice what you can do is you can keep all these extra jars in some other kind of folder. Till the point you are not making usage of the Maven, always try to keep all these extra jars whichever you are downloading in some extra folder instead of the downloads folder, because downloads will have too many extra things also which you will be doing. Yep. So let's assume we have kept it somewhere, because I have already kept it somewhere. Yeah. And let's go for this particular demo. So there we were in this one. So now let's see how to add that particular jar file. So on the demo one, we'll just see here build path, and we'll say configure build path. And in the class path, we'll click not the module path, but the class path you'll click. And here we need to add an external jar. So we'll say add external jars. And here, these are the ones. So you remember that earlier I was having something 8031, because that I made usage in January, I guess. Yeah. And if I again go back here and say back, so by January, this 3.2 version that also came on January 18. But the demo which I created at that point of time was on 15 January. So 32 version was not there, so I was using 31. And now since 33 is there, so let's use it. So I'll just select and I'll say open. So this is how it is going to look like under the class path. So my folder is in D drive. I have made it as a jars folder where I keep all the jars. And now I'll just say apply and close. And currently you see that this is the structure. Now the moment I'll say apply and close, see the magic. So this reference libraries got added here. So these are the libraries provided by Java by default, and this is the extra library which I will be using. Yeah. And again, this is the whole jar which you will be using here. So it is such a big in detail. Now where is this com.mysql.jdbc? Do we see here? So this is com.mysql, but everywhere we see this cj thing. This com.mysql.cj.jdbc is there, but not normal JDBC. And under that we have this particular driver class also available. But we don't need to go to that detail. We'll see why this CJ is appearing here and what to be done for that particular thing. But again, let's execute it now. So we'll just click here and we'll say run. And now it is throwing me some exception, but before that it says that loading class, this particular one, but this is a deprecated. So although Google told us that this is the driver class name, but this is a deprecated one. So earlier they used to make usage of this one, com.mysql JDBC driver, but now they make usage of cj.jdbc.driver. That's why you see that here also the package's name, they contain this term cj. So this is com.mysql.cj.jdbc, and within that we need to make usage of this particular driver. So let's add the term cj here. So that is the point which I said that you need to remember. So you can't just blindly trust on the Google or ChatGPT, because they can give you the old answer or whatever is the popular answer at that point of time. Yeah. So some of the things you need to remember. Now I hope that next time you won't make a mistake to make usage of JDBC, and you know that you need to make usage of CJ. So just add the word CJ there. So this is how it is going to look like. Now let's execute and at least remove this particular thing, and let's execute it again. Okay, so now that statement I guess is not coming, but there is something different is coming. So it says that this Pakistan underscore JDBC is not there. So that means that at least we are able to load this class and we are able to reach this particular statement. So that is a success for us. Now there they say that this database isn't available, and since it is a SQL syntax error exception, so it came here and yeah, it thrown us something like this particular thing. Yep. So this is the point here. Now here comes the role of our actual database, because the point is you said that okay, connect with this, but whether this database exists, the answer is no. So for that we need to go to this particular location, to the local host of our MySQL. So here let's just save it here and go there. Let me just copy this name also. Yeah. So now let's go to our MySQL, and for this I have already started it. So this is my MySQL Workbench. So whenever you are downloading the MySQL community server, along with that the Workbench will also come. So always try to install this also. Now some of you will say that okay, what is the need of this particular MySQL Workbench? The point is that if you are just installing the MySQL in your machine, then in order to interact with the MySQL, you need to open the command prompt again and again, and there you need to write all the queries, and that is not much user friendly. So I basically try to go for something graphical user interface. So this workbench is just a GUI tool which is able helping you to connect with your community server and the database. And this is the by default connection. So if you are just downloading and installing them together, so this connection will be already available to you. For the MySQL, you just double click on this. So on double clicking, here we will be getting something like this, that okay, this is my host, localhost 3306, the host and the port number. Username is root, because while installing itself I set this particular username, and the password, it is root. I mean, I don't need to hide this from you as of now. Yeah, so I can just say okay. So when you open this for the first time, this is how the tool is going to look like. Now you don't need to again go in detail of it. For that, again, if you wish, you can watch some other videos, but here we'll just do some of the things. Like in your STS, here we have this package explorer where we can see all the classes and projects, and here this is basically our space where we are going to code. This is our console. Similarly, in your MySQL also, this is the place where you can see all your schemas and databases, the database name. So by default, they will just give you SYS, which will contain something like this particular default table. And if you wish, let's try to open it out. So it will contain something like this random. So as of now, why I'm saying random, because it is of no use for me as of now. Yeah? So we'll just close it from here, and we'll close this also. Now I need to create my own Pakistan underscore JDBC here. So for this, one option is that you just make a right click here and say create schema, something like this. So this will appear, and here you type the word Pakistan underscore JDBC, something like this. So I hope the spelling and everything is correct, and you just say apply. Something like this will come, the complete SQL statement for that particular thing, create schema, and this again you say apply, finish, and you can close this, and you can see this has been created. And currently this has been created without any table. So this was one way, but let's try to see how we can do it with the help of SQL. So what I'll do is, first of all, I'll drop this. Yeah, so I have again dropped it, and now we don't have anything, and we'll come back to our Java part. Now let's move a little bit away from this, and let me just close it and clear this part also, and go to this resources folder, because I haven't shown you this, what was there in this one. So this resources folder is not basically something which my Java code is trying to make usage of. This is just for my purpose. Okay, so just for my reference. So here what I generally do is that whenever I create any project, I create a resources folder, and there I have something like this. So I keep all my SQL statements on all the things which I feel I will be using there, so that again and again I don't need to write from the scratch or search it from the Google. I can just reuse that at any point of time. Also, it is going to be beneficial that whenever I will be loading these demos on the GitHub and you will be downloading, you can get the same thing whenever you are going to download, and you can make usage of this. So what we will do is, here we have the SQL query to create a database. So we are saying create database. So here you see the term database, there it was schema, both are same, anything you can utilize. So we are saying if it doesn't exist, then create this one, and then use this, and then this is the table which we need to create. So as of now, let me just copy these many statements from here, and let me just copy all of them. I'll explain you there one by one. So I've copied, I'll go here, I'll paste all of them here. Now what I'll do is, I'll just select the first one, and I click on this particular symbol, and I'll say execute. So on executing, it will say create database if not exist. So one row has changed, but you see it is not appearing here. So right click and say refresh all. So it will start appearing here. Now the question is that after this we need to, let's say, create this particular table, because currently it is not having any kind of table. So how this will come to know which table we need to use, or which schema, which database we need to use, SYS or this one. So we need to execute this. We will say use this one. So we'll say this and say execute. So it is saying this has been executed, and now you see this is bold. So this is not bold, this is bold. So here bold means whatever you are currently using, but again this is empty. And now this is my table. So here I'm assuming that you know a little bit of SQL, and this is from that same a little bit of SQL that here we are creating a table by the name of owner underscore table. Then here we are having some kind of variables here. So all these are my column names. So there is an ID which is an integer, not null. First name and last name, these are my strings. So here string we are calling as varchar. This is the length which we are giving, 255 is the length. So we are saying first name, last name, gender, city, state, all can be strings with the max length of 255. Mobile number, max length can be 10, email ID 255, then some pet ID, pet name, date of birth, gender and type. Now why I'm using these column names only? Because again they are relatable to my first scenario which I explained in my video 1. So you can watch that particular one. Then I'm having some constraints. So you just need to have a basic idea for this. Yeah? So let me just select this and say execute. So the table has been created. Again 0 rows are affected with this. So let's say refresh all. And you see now for tables we have this arrow, and on clicking this we have this owner table. So you can again click here, you can see all the columns and everything from here. Columns you can see their details, you can just check out in this particular part just on selecting this. You can see whether there is any indexes or not, so that also you can check here. So this index came automatically because for them I said the mobile number and email ID are unique in nature. Then this foreign keys, so currently nothing, triggers currently nothing. Yeah. And now if you want to see what is the table, so one option is you say select start from table, or here you go and you just click on this one. So this will open a new window for you with the whole table. So currently this table is empty in nature. So this is how it is going to look like. Now let's go back to our Java code. So here we are, and we have already done this. Now let me go back to this demo.java. So yeah, now that particular thing exists. So let's try to execute, and on executing, here we see that we got the statement connection established. So that means we were able to create a connection with the database. So that's it. You don't need to do anything else. So you just need to successfully install a MySQL community server and Workbench in your machine. Workbench so that you can interact with this. And in Java, you just need to code that much. And yeah, only these many things are needed from our side. So this was the basic thing. Now let's try to enhance this a bit. Obviously, still we are not going to execute any kind of CRUD operations, but we will just enhance it a little bit. Now, the point is that as a good practice, you should not provide all these things here like driver name, URL, username, password, because let's say that there will be multiple methods in which you need to create a connection, load the driver and do all the things. So what we will do is we will try to make them as the variables. So we'll say here private static, I mean it's a kind of a constant we will try to create. So we'll say string here, and what we will do is we will just say here database underscore driver. So here we will be doing something like this, and we'll remove it from here, control X, we'll keep it here and say something like this, and this database driver we will say we will be using it out here. So this is the way we will be using. So here it goes, but it gives me some kind of error. What is that? Okay, by mistake I created it within the main method, so let me make it outside the main method here. So on the class level, so that now if my multiple methods needs to make usage of this same driver, so I don't need to write this again and again. At only one place I can utilize this. Same thing I will just quickly do for my URL, username and password also. So here we are. As you can see, I have created all those variables, and now it looks much more better here. So we have a database URL, username and password, everything on top. So let's say now in multiple methods I need to utilize them, so I don't need to write or change the values again and again. I can just use it like this. So this is just a kind of refactoring, and in our next videos we will be using this way only. So everything will be there on top and these things are going to remain there. Now, so this was a basic thing which we did. Besides this also we can do few more extra things. We can try to understand what are some of the extra properties of our database. So for this, again, I'll just pause our video for a minute and provide you something. So here we are. So here what I have done is I'm saying there is a sysout URL. So I have just added these 4 lines, nothing much. So I'm saying sysout URL. Now from this connection, I'm saying get metadata. All these are just the method names. You can just explore them on your own, something like this. And you can say get URL. So this way you can verify whether you are connecting with the same URL which you mentioned here or not. Then you can check the username. You can check the database product name and the database version also. So all these things you can check. So let me just execute the code here again here, and it will again look something like this. So the URL is same whatever I have provided here. The username is this. Now here the username is root@. So this is how it is going to provide root, then @, then your host address. And the product name, it says MySQL. So if you are using PostgreSQL or something different, it will give you a separate answer. And this is the version. So here you will say it is showing you 31, but in the library it is 33. So why is that difference? Because this version is not for this particular jar file. This is the version of the MySQL which I have installed in my machine, that particular version for the community server. Hence it is 31. So these 4 lines we are not going to use again and again. This is just for the demo purpose which I'm just showing you here, that when you also will execute the same demo, so you can also check and you can compare that how your environment is going to be different from my environment. Let's try to have a same kind of environment so that you can follow along the whole series easily. So this is how these things are going to look like. And before closing this particular video, let's do one more small thing, that here you can see I'm having one more file, that is data.txt. Now in this file what I'm basically having is that I'm having more than 70 data available with me. So all this data is there because from the next video onwards we will be utilizing that same owner table. So let's add the data to that particular table in this video itself. So I'm just saying here Control C, let's go there. Currently the table is empty, so let me just remove this and say everything here. So this all the data is there, and now let me say Control A and execute this. So you see that okay, something has been added, 72 rows have been added, something like this. There is no duplicate, there is no warning. Now let me just go again here and say this particular one, and now my database will look something like this. So in my database I'm having an ID, first name, last name, gender, male, female, then city is there, state is there, mobile number is there which is unique, email ID, pet name, and all these things are there. So this is the data which we will be utilizing for our next demo onwards also. So this is the way we will be doing. And here what I have done is that I have taken all these states and union territories of India basically, and for every state and union territories there are 2 values, one for male, one for female, so that we can have a good amount of data that whenever we are going to interact with the database we can just utilize it. So you also install the MySQL Workbench, execute the same demo, fill up this particular table, and be ready for our next demo. So I hope that you like this particular demo, and if yes, do like the video, subscribe the channel and share it with your friends, and let's meet in the next video. Thanks everyone.